Veilguard's launch weekend was a mixed bag. Let's just go with that one. I've watched quite a few people play it. A lot of my favorite content creators, internet people, whatever you want to call them, they've streamed the game, and well, it's interesting, right? Because I got to see it played through a bunch of different perspectives. Razor Fist on Saturday played like 5 hours of it. I've only watched a little bit of it because there's so much of this content going around, and yeah, he pointed out a lot of the follies of the game in his inimitable style. And Mahler played through, God, what is he at this point in time, like 11 hours, and he has aspirations of playing even more of it sometime later this week. And well, yeah, let's just say the most enjoyable part of his playthrough has definitely been his character, and not to be, of course, outdone by Az, heel versus babyface, who is quite influential with his streams, like his original launch stream, which I told you guys I watched through the character creation, the first couple hours of his gameplay, and well, it was very insightful. And then of course I can't leave out Little Platoon, who played that, and in fact he came to a bunch of the conclusions that I voiced at the beginning, especially when it comes to the dialogue. But as I've seen more people play through this, I have just further come to the conclusion that this is an incredibly unremarkable game. I haven't seen it crash on anybody, haven't seen any game-breaking glitches. It's like, it's one of these bad games that at least runs well. Gotta give it that one. But when it comes to the dialogue, holy Christ, man. When it comes to the characters, oh. When it comes to the gameplay itself, like Mahler specifically, he's playing on the hardest difficulty, okay? And Mahler plays a lot of games. He streams a few, and he plays even more in his spare time, according to him. I'll take his word for it. You would think, well, potentially somebody that well-versed in gaming might have a leg up on things, but I'm watching him play. I'm watching, yes, the other people that I mentioned before play as well, and even still, they're not doing anything that exceptional, and they're breezing through the game on at least medium, if not a more elevated difficulty. And Mahler, like, even just inspecting what he's doing when it comes to combat, it's nothing that's spectacular. It's mostly just mash, square. If you're feeling so inclined, blast off a couple of skills, and you're basically good to go. So for all the cringe that is out there, and yeah, as more people have played this, we've seen more cringe come to the surface. It could be forgiven, like if the gameplay was really fun, but that's just clearly not the case. It's perhaps the best, or rather least worst aspect of this game. Because when it comes to the characters and the dialogue, I mean, bro, it obviously takes the case and point.
Here, vegetables.
Thank you.
So, I'm non-binary.
Who the hell cares? Now, this clip has been edited to have a laugh track underneath of it, and I'm at least thankful for that, mostly because holy crap, is this soundtrack unremarkable. There was one piece of music that I thought wasn't that bad, but then I realized, oh yeah, I'm watching this on 2 times speed, and of course the vocals and the audio is all sped up at the same time, so yeah, it sounds all right. And then when I slowed it down, it's like, oh, it's very laborious, in fact, and it doesn't properly represent the sense of urgency. And that is something else that is festooned across the first few hours of this game. Like, the world is ending, and nobody acts like that's the case at all whatsoever. They're more convinced that their own personal grievances and their own personal identity is far more important, instead of, you know, stopping the 2 released elven gods from ending existence as we know it.
What does that mean?
It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
Okay, well, here's the thing, okay? Like, that's a Kunari, obviously. Why do we have these different races, or these different species, quibbling about human standards? It makes little to no sense. But of course, the writers can only imagine a world as reflective of their own. And they can only write characters like the people that they know, and frankly, they're just uninteresting, stupid people.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
This is because I have criticized your dress or your manners.
It isn't!
Under the Q, the term for one whose gender does not match the one given to them at birth was a cunithlock. Perhaps you are like that.
Why do you...
Bro, this is a high fantasy, right? This is a fantasy game. it reflects a world where magic exists. So if you don't want to be a man or a woman, you could just go bibbidi bobbidi dumbass and change who the fuck you are. It's so stupid, man. It is so stupid. And here's the thing. Over this launch weekend, like I said, I watched a lot of people play it. At this point in time, I have zero interest in playing this game because I thought, it's like, okay, Bioware, whenever it comes to their gameplay, normally they could try to loop something around, something could be fun. Like even with the disaster that was Anthem, the people that did manage to get in and play it thought that some of the movement was fun. There were some redeemable aspects of it. Ultimately, them abandoning it and it being a total money sink, that's a disaster that many people have gone over. As much as I hate Mass Effect Andromeda, it's a lot of the criticisms and critiques that I'm seeing reflected in Dragon Age, the Veilguard this time around. But when it comes to combat, when it came to some of the gameplay in Andromeda, in some respects, it was better than some of the weaker aspects of the original Mass Effect trilogy. And there was something there. It was just all of the characters and the dialogue and the plot that was so absolutely stupid made me give up on it wholesale and gaming in general for a long period of time. But as it's being pointed out, there's a certain class of people that want you to listen to what they have to say and stop believing your lying eyes. Because at Dragon Age the Veilguard, we're the only ones that are allowed to have opinions on this, okay? Not you, not the plebs that are out there. Because as you can see, things are disappearing. Things are disappearing, okay, when it comes to reviews. And, well, I've got Metacritic pulled up right here. And, yeah, as for the critics out there, and it's interesting because we're seeing something, something that I made the comparison of the last couple of videos ago. That this is the acolyte of gaming, where you have an overwhelmingly positive critic score, an 84, for a game that really doesn't deserve it. A 4, a 3.9? I think that might be a little bit on the top end, especially from what I've seen. Like, I've seen the first few hours played over and over again, obviously, right? Like, it's a launch weekend. It's a bunch of different people hopping in on the trash fire and then just being bored to tears and not wanting to continue it, because even Mahler's like, well, if you guys want to watch me play it, I'll play it. I don't want to, but I will. And it's like, okay, I get it. And I think Az is just going through the entire thing. I got to catch up on him. He's like got 20 plus hours deep on that shit. And I only watched the first half, 3/4 of his first stream. I wonder how much cringe he's gone through at this point in time, but I'll probably hear him on one of the streams he does later this week, maybe give a better recap or maybe put out some highlights or something like that. But I'll probably go back and watch some of it because, you know, he's doing a good job of going through all of this stuff, and he's an entertaining watch when it comes to streaming a game that he's engaged with. And this one is definitely the case, not for the reasons that Bioware or the critic class would want you to believe. But just simply going back to the critics here, okay? The Metacritics of the world, and then, of course, Paul Tathy from Forbes saying that here's the difference between a platform that makes you own a game to rate it and one that doesn't, pointing to the Steam reviews of all places and pointing out that 78% of users reviewed this game positively. Interesting. 5,700 reviews, 78% of them are favorable, as opposed to the curated side of things over on Dragon Age the Veilguard. And as Johan points out, mostly positive on Steam is basically a giant red flag. Yeah, because whenever I buy a game on Steam, it's been a while, but back when I used to shop on the site, you look for positive or overwhelmingly positive. And when it comes to Steam, normally a pretty reliable system. Like, their review system is better than a lot, and I would say a majority of other review aggregators, especially when they have all reviews and most recent reviews. And obviously that wouldn't be the case for Veilguard right now because it's now but a few days old. And even still, because it is just a few days old, we've seen that peak player count get reached Sunday afternoon and has now, well, I guess I could probably refresh the page right here to just show you that I'm not, beefing this at all. Yeah, it's done. It's over, guys. Okay, this weekend is going to be the biggest amount of engagement I could not imagine at all whatsoever any reason for people to hop on the bandwagon, because if you watch the game, it is to be bored by the game. It is not to be engaged with it. It is not to entice you to purchase it for yourself. This was everybody who was going to check it out at the most important time for it, and now it's just going to languish in obscurity because everybody got the memes out of it. Everybody got all the cringe out of it that they possibly could. There might be some late stage cancer on the horizon for those sticking through. It's just, there's no hook with this one. There really isn't. That 89,000 is going to stick there. And the way that the critics are trying to spin this as being some absolute success, bro, I wonder how they reconcile that with this, okay? And it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. You've got the completed Monster Hunter Wilds beta. I forget. It was an open beta. I don't know if you needed to get special access from Capcom or something like that, but it had 463,000 concurrent players over the weekend. Bro, this thing was a wild success all the way up until it was shut down, which now at this point in time, yeah, probably completely. Yeah, 0 players right now because it's done. It's dusted until it is fully released in February. I don't know if they're going to be running another beta period. Maybe they will because they're getting a lot of feedback. Yeah, this was free. You have to pay. They weren't even handing out review codes really for Veilguard, so not necessarily a fair comparison, but the way that the journos are trying to spin this, bro, in the face of evidence, in the face of irrefutable evidence, because yeah, you got Steam over here, all right? You got the achievements, and well, as Grums has pointed out, are people that are, yeah, playing it, okay? You got the 89,000 people, what, your 89.4 peak users, and 14% of players have made it halfway through the game, and 0.2% of people have completed it. Now, it could be a long game. That could definitely contribute to it, but even when people are subsequently streaming, like Az on his first day, when he was going through the character creation, going through, yeah, the prologue and stuff like that, he was touching 7,000 people. He was definitely getting a strong 6,000 all the way through. And then the next day when he came back to play the game, 2.5 thousand people came back, which is still great, okay? I don't want to besmirch him for that. Like, that's still a good turnout. It's just, obviously, everybody's coming in real quickly to take a look at the trash fire. It's like when you see a car accident on the side of the road. You don't come back around to see, you know, how many bones or how many limbs are on the side of the road. You take a look once and go, ooh, that's real bad. And then you continue on with your day. That's what Veilguard is. And that's what its ultimate life cycle is going to be. Because, yeah, now you have the professional journos coming out saying that this is literally the greatest game since the last greatest game. Dragon Age the Veilguard is Bioware's best game in ages. I mean, what's the competition? Because even they point to, right, like 2017's Mass Effect Andromeda, the 4th entry in the beloved sci-fi series. Yeah, it came out, it was a buggy, uninspired mess. Andromeda's reception eventually led to all of its downloadable content plans being canceled. Funny that they mention that, because you go a little bit lower down into this article right here, and well, like I said before, well, it's not buggy. It's probably the most competently created bad game that's been out there, because it's not, well, the art style is ugly, but some of the vistas look fine. Like, there's no inherent glitches that are there. Everything works. It's just uninspired and bad. It looks like it's all piecemeal from other better games and then just thrown together into this kind of leftover casserole. Yeah, this is the best game in ages, but Dragon Age Veilguard is now complete. BioWare confirms that there are currently no plans for downloadable expansions. And then you couple that with IGN's glowing praise when they gave it a 9, right? Like, if this is the last Dragon Age game that we ever get, thank God for what we did get. Well, they wouldn't say thank God, because they're all blasphemous heathens. But this is the legacy of your shit game, something that is ultimately going to be forgot. Everybody's got the laughs out of it, and there's no reason for anybody to come back to it. It's a bad game. It's a 3. It might be a 4 if you're feeling super generous, if you haven't played a lot of other RPGs. This thing gets nominated for any awards after it's carefully cultivated launch and reception. If this thing has any lasting legacy outside of being the final game that BioWare releases, it'll be doing reality a grave disservice. But yeah, man, I think later this week, I want to do a little bit more of a deep dive into how insane these journalists are when it comes to the spin, especially when we take a look at the drop-off that I very much anticipate coming out this week. So yeah, we'll be returning to the conversation around Dragon Age. Maybe by that time, there will be even more cringe for us to play. But hopefully, you know, it'll be something that happens tomorrow that'll put everybody in a little bit of a better mood. Well, common sense people in a better mood. And then, of course, it'll just infuriate the journos, and they'll be even more testy, which will just make for even more hilarious content. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.